welcome to fmtraining.tv. My name is Margaret Carlton. I will be your broadcast engineer for today. Anyway, Christian's been here for a very long time. He's a wonderful presenter. We love having him on the show. He's usually quite busy doing senior engineer stuff. So if you have questions, if Christian can't answer it, he'll tell you. Like he's not. We're not going to sit here and waffle and you go like, oh, Christian's fantastic. So we're happy to have him on today.
What's next up? Looks like we're starting to get some questions flowing in.
Oh yes,
And I'm
no,
getting I'm getting more warmed up.
we have two more that I'm going to grab on YouTube that came in before Cora's, and then I'll do Cora's.
Sure.
So, the question from Joel Schulman is, what is the best way to add multiple pictures/files into a container on the record? Is it to have multiple fields for each file, or is there a more efficient way to do it?
Yeah, that's so you've got a record and you want to have multiple images associated with that record. If I'm
Yes.
understanding correct, Joel, do you add container one, two, three, four, or do you do something different? For every rule, there's an exception. So let me start with this, but I will tell you that when I'm adding images to new files, and I have to say it that way because like everybody, I've done it the other way for everything up until this point, and I break this rule sometimes. I create a documents table or an images table, and I try to have everything live in there. Even if there's only going to be one image associated with the record. I do this for a couple reasons. The number one reason is that images bloat tables and they make the whole table go slow. And so having multiple image containers or multiple containers in a record, it can get you one day because it won't necessarily do it immediately, but databases, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you're dealing with the legacy, the code that you have with them, and all of a sudden, at 50,000, 100,000 records, that table becomes really difficult to manage. The second thing is, and I do the same thing with phone numbers or emails. If a client says to me, I need to track phone numbers or emails for a record, then I'll add a phone number or email field for the contact. They say I need a second one. I'll go ahead and give them the second field potentially. But I ask them at that point, I ask them, is there going to ever be a third one? And if the answer is maybe or yes, then I make another table. Because at this point, they can have one or they can have infinite related records. And so if this were my file, let's go into manage database and we're going to add, we'll call it contacts. Okay, so we're going to create contacts. Test, this is going to be our images. Okay, so we're going to change that. That's where our little baby KJ lives. So we're going to come over to our relationship graph and rearrange things a little bit. So, okay, let's make these more manageable. Okay. So first, I need to go into images. So this is our primary key. So this is going to be image. And then I'm going to make a foreign key here. So I'm going to do ID contact. Okay. And I'm going to go to contacts. And I've got ID contact. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and change that. And then over here, I'm going to do contacts to images. Based on ID contact. And you know what? Why don't we even just have a create and delete option turned on? So we've got contacts, contacts to images. I guess at the bottom because it's not sorting by what I would expect it to. And I'm going to do create and delete. The create, I'll show you why that's useful for today. The delete, if you guys are new, I would be very, very, very leery of using this. But the idea is that anytime I delete this contact, all the images associated with it would get deleted, especially because, again, those can sit and bloat. One caveat on this is I mentioned that when you deal with images that are external to the file, the name is different. For those of you doing production level development, you should basically always, always, always have this set to external. Having this stored internal, if you're not familiar with it, is going to increase the size of the file itself, whereas this will create a folder next to the file and all the images go into it. What I like to tell my clients is that databases are a lot like people. The bigger that we get, the slower that we tend to move, and images are a great way to fill that up really quickly. So turn this on. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want it on my desktop. I'm going to say OK, and then let's go to that new layout that just got created. Okay, so this is our contacts layout. And assuming that a vertical display of the images is adequate for you, Joel, then you can have really something simple like the contact info up here. So contact info. And then right here, we would add a portal. And we probably want some sort of descriptor of what the image is, but the fundamental part is that we would have the image in there. Okay, and so now I'm gonna change this to like 4. Make this less tall. And now let's see, we can just make that 3. Okay. Make this scale. Boom. And now I'm going to make my new record. Let's go over here. It's a little high. Drag. Image there. Okay, so now we can bring baby KJ over again if I can find him. I got some other pictures. So we can be like, here we go. I want to show pictures of the baby. And so I can, continuously add as many photos as I want to here. The challenge would be if you don't want them just displayed vertically, that's still doable. And maybe you only want one image displayed. There's slightly fancier ways of doing this, but you can just get rid of the portal. And now you'll only ever have the one image associated with it. Now, I don't want to get too never mind. I've done this where I have 3 images, but this one is the contract. This one is the a different contract. Like have them be very specific and still do this method, but it requires having additional relationships and using flags. I can show that, but I know we're running a little low on time. I want to make sure everyone gets their questions answered. So let me know if that's helpful, Joel, or if I can give you more information.